Corey, we've talked in the past and you've talked about a mission statement being everything. Why is a personal mission statement crucial for individual success?
Well, I kind of throw it back to, we can say, is it crucial to a corporate success or a corporate identity? And I think most people would say it is. There's a reason why people spend so much time and money on mission statements. And so for me, I believe it is. And the reason is because I've discovered that most of the thought leaders, when I do all these interviews, they say no more than the average person, to the tune of, I've looked at it, and I would say some say no 20 times more, but I've seen people say no as many as 50 times more than the average person. And so when I say says no, I mean for their time. Like, so if somebody says, "Hey, will you meet with me to talk about this?" Or "Can you take on this task?" Usually they say no more than yes. The average person says yes a lot more than no, because we have a hard time with no. And so and to circle that back to why that matters around a mission statement is I learned this, that thought leaders say no more often, but I didn't really have a tool for deciding what a no and a yes was outside of gut instinct. And so the mission statement, how that came to life, was I was sitting in an office one day, I looked beside me in the wall, and there was this company mission statement. And I said, wow, like, we don't have a mission statement. Aren't we as important as a company? Like, to ourselves, shouldn't we be the CEO of our own life? And if we are, shouldn't we have a mission statement if it's important to all these companies? So I crafted my own mission statement, which was essentially to be the guy that motivates, educates, entertains, donates, and inspires. And so then I was able to, once I had that, so this is kind of we'll say a takeaway, a strategy for people that they can do is, once I knew what my mission was, then it was easy to say, okay, if somebody asked me to do something, if I say yes and it's not aligned with my mission, then I'm saying no to something else that's aligned with my mission. So by knowing what my mission is, I can now say, okay, is it going to be aligned with my mission? No. Okay, it's an easy no. Is it going to be aligned with my mission? Yes. Okay, it's an easy yes. So how that worked out with numbers is, if it was like one of those five I mentioned, like it was going to let me donate but nothing else, then it was probably still going to be a no. If it was going to be four of those five, then it was probably going to be a yes. So the reason for me, I think a mission statement is important. It allows you to say, okay, this is where I'm heading. This is my direction. This is what I stand for. Also, by the way, Deborah, this is what I stand against. But it's like the
Yeah.
mission allows you to know, this is the direction I want to head, and this is what it looks like. And then the second part, the benefit of it, the second benefit is that now, if you want to know what to take on and what not to take on, you can put it up against your mission statement and say, literally looking at it, does it make sense to take this on in light of what my mission actually is? So I think the mission statement serves more than one purpose. And I carry mine around in my wallet, but I can tell you honestly, I haven't looked at it in a long time. I feel the energy of knowing what it is and it's there with me gives me the power to act on it.
See, and I find that very powerful because I can see how when we hear the culture of yes, like wanting to say yes to as much as opportunities as possible, but we can be saying yes to the wrong things and we can be saying yes for the wrong reasons, which people get drawn into the people pleasing. I would love for you to speak a little bit more to that in when it comes to really making decisions about the opportunities and how to accept and how to decline. I know you've touched on it, but for people to develop that deeper confidence of how to say more no more frequently to the things that aren't serving them.
Yeah, I mean, so I will say, I feel like the no side of things, first of all, one of the challenges I think we have is because we're kind of taught to say yes more often than no, and we're taught to feel guilty if we say no. Like, help people when you can, serve every time you can. My grandfather always said, the quickest path to success is by saying yes to everything. And by the way, I will say I struggled with that for years, because here's the guy that I looked to and saw him as successful. He was a carpenter with a grade three education, ran his own business, built a fiberglass space shuttle replica to scale, and never even told a soul. We had to tell people. But this was my definition of success. And he always said, say yes to everything. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm supposed to say yes no matter what. Then I heard this great Richard Branson quote, which I thought was his. And it said, say yes to everything and figure out how to do it later. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the guy has 200 and some companies is saying yes all the time too. Him and my grandfather are on the same page. That must be the right thing to do. Then I start doing these interviews and I notice, oh my gosh, all these other people are saying no. Like Tony Robbins has a team hired to say no, realistically. And
Mhm.
so I was like, something's amiss here. So eventually I finally get to see the full Richard Branson quote, and there was key words missing from what I had heard. He said, say yes to everything you love to do and figure out how to do it later. You love to do was a very important part that was missing originally. And then, so then I went back and said, okay, well, my grandfather was a success, but yet he said, say yes. I have to figure that out. And what I ultimately figured out, Deborah, is he was a carpenter working in a small town. His only boss ever slash client was the one he was working on the house for at the time. So if they said, Eddie, can you also build some steps, or can you add this or that? His mindset was, of course, I got to say yes, because that's how clients will refer me. They'll be happy that I did that. It made sense for him, but he wasn't living in the world we are with technology and phones and devices and everything else. So I come to realize he wasn't in the same world that I wanted to be in. And that's why yes made sense for him, no made sense for me. So that's why I think, first of all, or that's how I started figuring this out and how I started asking it. In terms of frequency, I basically probably say no. Like what I said earlier with other people, I probably say no in a week. If I get asked to do 100 things, I probably say no like 95 times. Some are easy no's, some are small no's, some are hard no's, some are big no's. But the last piece to this is, how do you say no without burning a bridge? Because I think the biggest issue with why people say yes is because they feel like they'll hurt feelings, they'll hurt relationships. I just had this today. I can give you a real example. But what I will say is where this came from is I was interviewing Shailene Johnson, the creator of Turbo Jam, and she's also like an Instagram expert and influencer. And I was interviewing her, and she was running Turbo Jam at the time. They ended up selling like 6 million DVDs. They had like 600 classes across North America. And she was telling me the classes that were close to where she was in LA, the instructors would ask her to fill in all the time. And so she was saying yes to filling in to run a class, even though she was running this empire with, that was pulling her time all the time. Then she had to go in the middle of everything and switch up and go to drive into the course at LA, deal with traffic, parking. And her father said something like, when are you going to start thinking as big as you really are? Something like that. And just stuck with her. So she realized for her to do that, she had to start saying no to those classes. And so here's the not burning bridges side. What she started doing, which I think is amazing, is she realized that their company is very family friendly, and all their employees knew that. And her husband's name is Brett. So what she would tell people when they started asking her going forward is, she'd say, well, you know what? I'd love to say yes, but I need to talk to Brett to make sure he didn't make plans that I don't know about, or to make sure my family, we don't have plans that I'm not thinking about. If it's okay with you, leave it with me for a day or two. I'll ask if we have anything. If we do, I'll try to find somebody else who can help you. Would that be okay? And what she found is people didn't get mad because they realized she was asking for time, but she was saying, I'm still going to try to help you. It's not a no, it's just a
Yeah.
maybe. And so I started finding my version of that depending on the circumstance. And I have to tell you, it really changed away from burning bridges. Now, just to finalize this, I will say just happened today is we had somebody who I had done an interview for, and they featured me on their show, but they added me to their newsletter, Deborah, without saying, can I add you to your newsletter? And as you know, in Canada, we can't do that. Well, at least legally. But you can in certain other areas, right? It's like the old Wild West in certain places. So I got added to a newsletter, and I was on it for 6 months or longer. And I too busy, like getting 100 and some emails a day already.
Mhm.
And I got to start, drawing the lines. This is a small no. But the lady, basically, we said, hey, need to take a break from the newsletter, et cetera, et cetera. And the problem was I couldn't find the unsubscribe, because I'd rather not, put them in that position. Anyway, she
Mhm.
came back and said, well, I featured heavily on the show, and what do you mean you don't want to get my news about the episodes and stuff like that? And it was like almost like I was, being evil just by saying, can I unsubscribe from your newsletter? And so I had to go kind of out of my way and say, you know what? Um, so appreciate you, and I do want to share your stuff. And if you have something major come up, let me know, and I want to support you. But I'm getting 100 some emails now, and a lot of people know this. It was posted online. My wife is in chemo right now, so we have a lot more pulls on our time, and I don't want to waste their email and coming in, and I'm not paying attention to it. So I had to kind of explain that out. And then I still don't know how they took it, but they basically came back and said, no, I totally get that. Happy holidays, what have you. But my point still is, I still had to say no, even if they took it sort of wrong. But I try to do my best to buffer it with explaining why I'm saying no versus just no, sorry, can't help. So
Mhm.
I hope that explains it well, but I say no often, daily. In fact, I had to work the muscle. I still have to work on it. I do recommend people start really small, like really, really, really tiny, like somebody that's soliciting and pitching you that you've never heard of before. And still I would practice saying no in a nice way, like, I so appreciate you taking the time to do this. However, I already have somebody we work with that does this exact same thing. So I don't want to waste your time. But, again, I do appreciate you taking the time to reach out, and I wish you much luck with it. Like, just a nice no. But that's an easier no because you don't know the person from a hole in the ground. So that's a little bit of why I say no, how I say no, how to try to do it without burning bridges, and how to do it and get started on it by saying easy no's first.
So what would you recommend to someone of like, how did you break down, like to craft that personal mission statement? What should someone start with when they're thinking about doing this as well for themselves?
Quite honestly, you and I were talking about this off air, my feeling that done is better than perfect. And I
Mhm.
believe that applies equally, if not even more so, to your mission statement. Meaning, getting started just involves figuring out what is it you want to do or be known for, or what's your goal, or what have you. And then what does that look like in writing? So, for example, if it's parenting, like your goal and purpose has always been to be a parent, maybe, and you want to be a good parent, maybe you say your mission is to be the best parent on the block. Now, and it's not to, not to belittle other parents or knock them or compete with them, but writing that part down, then, so my thing is, it's never going to be perfect when you first write it. And to be honest, because a mission statement can be like 12 words, it could start out and be close to what it ends up being. But I don't think any of it happens until you write it down. So it could be as simple as that with the parenting. Another example is Walt Disney's mission statement is something to the effect of to be to have everyone, especially children, leave happy. My understanding is when they first started Disney, it was to have everyone leave happy. Sorry, to have children leave happy. And then they finally realized that adult parents sometimes are going there as children too. Like my wife and I, before we had kids, went to Disneyland and we were like two little kids. So why shouldn't they want us to leave happy? But it was built for kids. So what I'm getting at is that's their mission statement is to have everyone, especially children, leave happy. But if you think about it, their advertising says happiest place on earth. So they knew they wanted to be a happy place. Now it's just a matter of what does that look like in writing. And so it could have been their mission statement could have been to be the happiest place on earth. What does it take to be the happiest place on earth? And Harley's is to create an environment where a 42-year-old accountant can drive around wearing black leather and have people be scared of him in different towns where they don't know him because it's a lifestyle company. And you get my point. But if you think about those, Deborah, all of those things, you could literally have written that in 5 minutes, but it wouldn't start until you start. Now, again, it doesn't mean it's going to be perfect at the beginning, and Harley's has evolved and Disney's has evolved over the years. You might get it right the first time. It might take you 5 years, but at least if you know you want your place to be a happy place, who cares if the wording changes 100 times? As long as you know you want to be a happy place, that's the mission. So for mine, where I say I want to be the guy who motivates, donates, educates, inspires, and entertains, the donates is okay, I know I want to be a person that gives back. That's the donate. The motivating is I'm a speaker. So I know I want to some degree, motivate people to take action. Even though I can't do it for them, I want to motivate them to. I want to inspire people. So hopefully that makes sense as to me, it's a matter of saying, what do I want to be? What do I want to be known for? What do I want to achieve? Now, what does that look like when I write it down in a sentence?
And I think what I'm taking away is the biggest point here is it doesn't start until you do.